Hi, yes, Evan. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you how to do the primary, secondary and tertiary colours on your colour wheel. Okay, we need to get you to learn how to paint so that you can use these colours for blending later on. Alright, so first of all, we've got the 3 primary colours, which you've already started doing anyway. Okay, so I'll get cracking. So I'm going to paint my first primary colour in here, red. Look at how nice and thick and opaque that is. When it starts to get to this point where it's almost like a little bit chalky, where it doesn't spread nicely, you need to just add a touch more water to your paintbrush. And it's getting nice and smooth. Make sure it's nice and neat. Done. Okay, and then we go for the next one. For me, that's going to be blue. Just wetting the blue. You see, it doesn't really spread very well, not as well as the red, so add a little bit more water. You see that I go over the paint quite a bit. Every time I add I'll dip my brush into the blue again, I'm going to keep going over to make sure that it's nice and smooth and even. And the last one is yellow. So your first step is to paint all of the primary colours. Don't start on the secondary colours until you've finished all of the primary colours. Otherwise it gets a bit confusing for you. We need to use this colour wheel as reference when we start doing our painting. Okay, so I've added my red, yellow and blue primary colours. In this light, that yellow looks a little bit strange. It is a pure yellow. Okay, now one thing I've missed out here is the other 3 primary colours. All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm now going to paint primary colour where it's pointing to. Okay, so if you haven't done this, do this really, really quickly. Remember, you're still on your primary colours. Okay, I'm squeezing my paintbrush each time just to get rid of a bit of excess water. Don't want the watercolours too watery. And remember to make it smooth, so I could leave it like that if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go over it, make it nice and smooth. Again, squeezing my paintbrush because my yellow is quite wet. Okay, primary colours all done. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to mix these 2 colours and we're going to paint it here. Okay, or these 2 colours and paint it there, or these 2 colours and paint it there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of red on my table. I'm going to wash my paintbrush. Now I'm going to put a bit of blue on my table and I'm going to mix those together. And it's got to look about 50-50. Okay, so it's got to look as though, all right, whatever colour it is, it's not too dark, it's not too light, it's perfect. Okay, and that makes purple. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water to that purple because it's not quite spreading as well as I would like. Now it's really hard to make sure that your primary colours, your secondary colours are nice and opaque. So you see that's starting to get a bit watery. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more paint to that. I don't think I made enough. There we go. Okay, again, go over, make sure that it's nice and smooth. Okay, because we can't go back here, we don't want this wood purple to dry. We're going to paint the colour here. Okay, so you can see where it's pointing. Okay, again, go back, go over it so it's nice and smooth. Okay, now, we've got an issue here because my purple, I'll take a look, this purple here, okay, that's going to dry and then it's going to be a bit hard potentially for me to make that purple again. So what we've got to do is we've got to mix these two together now, and this makes your tertiary colour. So now we mix these two and we paint it here. Okay, so I've got my purple already on my table, and now I'm just going to add a bit more red. Now watch what I'm doing here, look, I'm only mixing a bit more red to one side. Okay, the other side I'm going to mix a bit of blue. Alright, and then I'm going to paint it here. So it should be a bit of a purpley red. There's a little bit of water. It's not spreading very well. So basically that's a light purple. Get a bit more in there on the bit where it was a bit watery then. Okay, and then again what I'm going to do now is on this half, wash my paintbrush, get some blue, mix that into the other side. Okay, as long as that looks like it's a darker blue with a bit of purple in it, and if not we can just pull a little bit more of that red in to make it a bit more purple. Okay, and then we paint it in. And you see there, it's a bit darker, a little bit of water. Okay, it's a bit more blue. So you've got your tertiary colours. Okay, and you're done with purple. Alright, so now we go back here. We're going to mix these two together. So yellow. Make sure I get plenty on my table. Whoops. Make sure I get plenty on my palette because I don't want to be running out. And I need some blue. And that should make a nice, even green. So if you see what's happening here, my green isn't quite a medium green. Remember what we need to do is we need to make that green darker and lighter. Okay, so we need to make a medium one. All right, and I think that's fine. So now what I'll do is add a little bit of water to that. Hopefully I've made enough. And now I'll paint that green. I think that's a medium green. Again, go over. Okay, and remember we paint the exact same colour here. And now I go back Okay, I'm going to get my yellow and I'm going to make half of it lighter. Might need quite a bit of yellow for this. That green needs to be quite a bit lighter. Okay, when I think that I'm fine, or I think I've done that, paint it in. Do we think that that's a lighter green? Yes. If it's not, then go back and add a little bit more yellow. Or if you think it's too light, you can go back and add a little bit more green. You must start with the lighter colour first when you're mixing these, only because it makes it a lot easier for you. You can always darken something, but to lighten something takes quite a bit of time. Okay, and then go back. Okay, now we'll add blue into this green. So make sure that we don't just have a blue, we need to pull in and maybe a little bit more like I've done there. So it's definitely a lighter green. A darker green. I think do we need to make a bit more, put a bit more blue in there? I think so. There we go, that's better. Make it nice and smooth again. Okay, if it's starting to dry a little bit, you can just get a bit of water on your paintbrush and then try and make it smooth that way. Okay, and we're on to our last one, all right, which is these two painting here. So yellow, okay, and red. It's very easy to add too much red, just like I've done. All right, remember we need a nice even middle orange. So what I'm going to do is, because there's quite a lot there, I'm just going to pull a little bit in. I'm not going to try and mix yellow into that whole section there. All right, that would take too long, use up too much of my yellow. Okay, I think, have I got an even orange there? Yeah, that's better. I'll paint that here. Right, that's a bit light. So all I do is pull in a little bit more of that dark. Right, add a bit of water, it's getting a bit dry, I've not mixed enough. There we go. And again, we'll paint it here. Right, go back to the palette. Remember, we're going to try and make that lighter. So I'll make it really light on one side. So I've added yellow. Right. And then we need to make sure that we paint the orange and the yellow that we've just mixed. We need to paint it in the right spot. Okay, and then we go back. And we're careful this time, we don't add way too much red. Okay, but pull in a bit of that yellow. That red is quite a powerful one on my palette. Okay, we're not going to pull it all in. I think that's quite dark. Do a little test. Yeah, Could we make it darker? I think so. I think I've been a bit too shy then. Is that a bit too dark? See, it does take a bit of time. You've got to get it right in between the middle of them. And what it does is that then teaches you how to mix your palettes, your paints a little bit better. Yeah, that's a bit better. I think on the camera it probably looks very similar to the red, but it's not in real life. It's actually just ever so slightly subtly a little bit lighter. Hopefully when that dries it'll you'll be able to see a bit more. Okay, and you're finished. Okay, so your tertiary colours are these ones in between a primary colour and a secondary colour. So you have to mix a primary colour and a secondary colour together to make a tertiary colour. But if you mix a primary colour with a secondary colour that doesn't belong in that colour, so for example, if you wanted to make mix a colour with a secondary colour like purple here, if you tried to add yellow, you would get a brown. You can only add a secondary colour that belongs to a primary colour that belongs to that actual primary colour, secondary colour. Okay, so if you want to make a tertiary colour out of this purple, you must add either this colour or this colour. Well done.